What's up, everyone? Mike from What the Fun. This debate section is from our latest episode of Test Your Might, the weekly video game debate show. The full episode is found on any podcast app of choice with Apple and Spotify links down below. Thanks for watching. Enjoy.
The problem that you guys are having right now is the fact that we've been sitting around talking about NBA 2K and how terrible it is for the last 10 minutes. But what you're here for is for us to talk about other random things and how terrible those are in this segment that you came here for, and that is Test Your Might. Gentlemen, are you ready?
Yes.
I think so. I haven't debated Sharif in a minute.
That is correct. Oh, yeah. Sharif, since it's been a minute since you've debated anyone that is older than a toddler, we will give you the option of choosing to go first or second with the very first question.
I would like to go first.
You would like to go first with the very first topic. I will read it to everyone right now.
Thank you.
If the Microsoft Activision Blizzard acquisition is approved by the FTC, what should Microsoft's next non-video game acquisition be to complement their gaming arm? Sharif, you get to go first.
Cool. So by gaming arm, you mean like a physical arm, like a cybernetic, Phil Spencer gets like an actual,
right. Yeah, I would say
arm, right?
That, I wasn't necessarily thinking like Peter Molyneux, replacing replacing instead of a tattoo, replacing his arm with a cybernetic X. It's just a green glow. I was meaning like maybe their vertical, their metaphorical arm.
I got
but you could use literal arm if you'd like.
So I think that Microsoft, I would love for them to do two things. One, get in the handheld space, or two, get in the VR space. Now, yes, they have HoloLens, but they've made that clear that's not really that's not a gaming thing. That's more of a thing. But I think that they have a real, there's a real potential here, because Sony is obviously in the VR space, but they're really going for this really premium experience with VR, right? Which is great, but also very expensive, right? Where like they're like, yes, you got to spend this many $100s on the PS5 plus this many $100s on the headset, and they're tethered. All, yeah. I mean, it's niche. Right, like my hope is that they don't have to sell, like it's like the Apple model, like you can sell one and you make profit, you know. Right. So you don't like Apple sells one $3,500 Vision, like whatever, and they profited probably. So I think that they could buy one of these smaller VR companies and just make aim for sort of like those early, like those $200 Oculus type of devices. I think that they could really go for more of a mid-tier VR solution, and I think that as long as it's easy to use and it's wireless and it's more of a complement to the Xbox, so it's not like you're playing all your games through here. It's more like, hey, here's a little side thing that has Master Chief in it, or hey, go tune up your Forza car in this VR solution, and then import it back into the game. I feel like they could do those kind of small things, and I think that that would be cool, and it wouldn't they wouldn't break the bank on trying to outdo Sony in the VR spot, or outdo Apple in their VR thing, or a Meta either. I think that they can really make a niche in this sort of mid-tier VR market.
All right. Well, Sharif's got a mid-tier VR headset. Mike, what do you think Microsoft should do to complement their gaming arm?
Yeah. So recently in the news, there has been a certain group that has made a crap ton of acquisitions, whether it be just single intellectual properties or studios as well. And that is the Embracer Group. And now the Embracer Group is not something that I want Microsoft to buy.
Okay.
It's actually one of their intellectual properties that they currently own the rights for video game making, but also they also own the opportunity for other transmedia stuff as well. And I think that they should buy the rights to Lord of the Rings from Embracer Group. Now, the reason is because, first and foremost, have you seen the reviews for Gollum? Like, Embracer Group is not doing well with Lord of the Rings. So, secondly, obviously, this is something that goes beyond the non-gaming, right? And that's sort of the heart of Cicero's question here, is that, like, when you think of Lord of the Rings, you don't necessarily think video games. It's not necessarily ubiquitous. Yes, there has been a lot of good Lord of the Rings titles, Lord of the Rings related video games, not Gollum. So Embracer Group does need to, I think that they need to sell it off when they have the ability. Now, again, maybe Sharif is going to bring it up, so I'm already going to just thwart that right away, because Embracer Group has doubled down recently on Lord of the Rings. They said that this is their bread and butter, that they are going to be, focused on Lord of the Rings, but I think it's too little too late. Again, Embracer Group, did you see the reviews on Gollum? Like, I'll just say it again. It's bad. I think that the Lord of the Rings intellectual property needs to be under better hands, and a better place that has the studios to actually back up what this property needs in the video game space.
All right. Well, so Sharif, why is a mid-tier VR headset better than buying Lord of the Rings from Embracer?
Well, I think VR is something that, everybody's been trying to get into. And I think Microsoft needs to get in and maybe take some bruises and do that on the way, because we all know that it's going to be the future eventually. Maybe that's, 10, 20, 30 years down the line, but you kind of got to get in at some time. And a Microsoft being a hardware leader, I think needs to get in there soon. I think it's better than Lord of the Rings. I think when you buy one of these big franchises, you kind of run into a similar thing with Call of Duty or Street Fighter 6, where it's well, is Microsoft gonna, is the Lord of the Ring, is any game that uses Lord of the Rings, like Shadow of Mordor or Shadow of War, is that only going to be on Microsoft consoles, or is Amazon Rings of Power only going to run on a Zune, to
throwing it back,
So I mean, I think you run into a lot, some of those things. I'm sure that they can work out kind of legally, but I think from the goodwill perspective, it kind of makes Microsoft kind of look like they're shutting off a huge franchise from a group of folks.
Okay, well.
Yeah, but
Mike,
I mean, you talk about goodwill. They're about to buy Call of Duty, and they're handing out 10-year deals left and right. They're saying, hey, we're going to put it on your platform, and we're going to keep it on PlayStation. Hey, Phil Spencer just swore under oath next to Judge Corley, I will do everything in my power to keep Call of Duty on PlayStation forever, he said, pretty much. So I mean, let's be honest, even if the Lord of the Rings intellectual property is under Xbox, there is still a chance that it will still be multi-platform. You said, Sharif, I'm very interested to hear that, because you said that to get into the VR space, they need to make some bruises and get some bruises to start. And I don't know if you're listening to this trial or Phil Spencer recently. They're already taking the bruises. They have lost the console wars. Xbox is terrible. We need to be the lowly, bruised up person so we could buy Call of Duty and not be bruised anymore. Like, Xbox is already at such a disadvantage to create another division that creates another sort of hardware VR headset. I don't think it's the way to go. Now, even I believe Matt Booty, who is one of the people at Xbox, they're just not even thinking about VR right now. I don't think it's in their future plans. I think that they just want to focus on services, which is why Game Pass is such flaunted right now, that they're not looking to create another hardware extension. They're just looking to get their games to the hardware that you already own, like your phone. They would rather get into the handheld space, maybe not by creating a proprietary device, but creating apps that could be used on the Steam Deck. Maybe Game Pass becomes native on there, or they have the ASUS ROG Ally, the ROG Ally. So I don't think they're getting into the hardware business. I mean, they're in third place. They lost the console wars, you know.
All right. Well, Sharif, tell me more about your VR. What you believe the VR solution for Microsoft will be?
Yeah. So we're talking non-gaming, right? So we're talking about, obviously those like applications I talked about with Forza are gaming applications, but if like you can have something very easy that works well with Windows and your Surface and all that stuff, it could possibly have some syncing capability so that like you don't have to actually load things onto it or transfer things onto it. It like sort of kind of like works on the cloud and just kind of pulls VR elements from things that you already own, right? So you know, in the Forza example, it's like you like wouldn't have to like search some store and download. If you own Forza on the Xbox, you put on the like headphone, you know, on the VR thing that's synced up with your account, it'll say, hey, here's this VR exclusive thing from a Forza, or like hey, I know that like you were like building this thing in like a Visual Studio, right? Here's like a VR kind of version of it that we've already kind of tapped up. So I think it's like a cool like small extensions on things that you already own, and it can apply to gaming and non-gaming. And you know, Microsoft is a huge company of engineers, so I have no doubt that you know that they could, you know they would obviously buy the expertise, but I have no doubt that they could also just push the resources into an acquisition to make things happen at a faster pace.
All right, Mike, what will Microsoft be gaining with Lord of the Rings?
I mean, in its purest and simple form, it is the name, right? It is the ability to own what J.R.R. Tolkien has designed, has created, has imagined, right? So that does extend to, you know, things like Rings of Power. They could bring it into, you know, where there's more movies, more shows, whatever. But also something similar to what James Gunn said with the DC universe that he is helping to establish as well. Some of these games might be interconnected as well, and maybe it's not like a full on you have to play this video game to understand the movie. I would certainly hope not. I don't think that's what James Gunn and DC is going to do, but like maybe there is something where a character that is from Rings of Power or something like that they're made into their own game. What I think is sort of lacking from Sharif's argument there is that they have such an amazing staple of studios already under the Xbox wing, and just to have these people already there and then just give them the opportunity, give them the ability to create games either based on characters that you see in like a show like Rings of Power, or you know, from the original movies, or from just the book itself. Maybe they create something that's not Gollum and it's good, and that just even creates, you know, more goodwill and just like this brand notoriety thing. Cicero and Sharif, you've listened to our episodes. I've been saying this for years. Like, I think Xbox needs a brand that is bigger and greater than video games, and Lord of the Rings is certainly that.
All right. Well, great arguments by both people here. This was a tough one. Sharif, you came in with a VR headset that really accentuated non-gaming elements, and also was able to integrate how that piece of hardware would also transfer the non-gaming elements into games. I really love that. Mike, you took an IP and really did a good job, I think, of establishing how that IP could make sense for the Xbox brand, and make it, and really kind of change the messaging around both the franchise and the brand, and marry those two things together. In this particular instance, I'm going to have to go with Sharif. I think what got me was him talking about using the VR headset as an immersive element for games. So it's completely optional, but you can go ahead and while you're browsing something, if you did a Bing search or something like that on a browser with your headset on, that'll give you extra points in Forza, or, you know, you get access to the DLC that will allow you to do like tire changes or something like that. I think that's a great way to involve people in with the gaming peripherals, or with peripherals in general, that isn't necessarily like, you know, hammering them that you got to use it. So yeah, well done, Sharif. That first one goes.
Well, I disagree.
Well, you know,
I forgot to mention every VR set comes bundled with a mandatory Kinect.
Right.
You know,
that does the eye tracking, does the hand tracking for you.
Mandatory
Xbox off.